Welcome to the Dead 3 Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, George Evian, and we are going to jump right into it. I hope that your 2024 is off to a good start. We're 8 or 9 days into it, and I told this to my boys yesterday, driving them to school. I said, and I've said this before, what do you think I mean that you have started a new book? There are 12 chapters to that book, and you are 7 pages in to chapter 1. And they both looked at me and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And as we drove, and I told them, I was like, listen, there's 12, we're on to another book. And the book is essentially titled 2024. There are 12 chapters in it. There are 12 months to the year. We are on day 7 of chapter 1 being January. So I asked them to talk about the great things that have happened in 7 days and how their story is. So I hope that as you start your year and you're on day 8 or 9, that your book is going the direction that chapter 1 is going the way that you would want it to go. Mine so far is, as there's been improvement, there's been goal changes, there's been habit changes, there's things I'm doing. Yesterday was just okay, that I dropped the ball on a few things in terms of, diet, walking, running, podcasting, conversations, gratitude, fell a little short yesterday after a number of great days, but back on it this morning in that I was out very early in the snow, in the sleet, in the cold, walking, running, listening to podcasts and kind of getting my mindset for the rest of the week. So, but anyway, I hope your year is off to a great start. This is the year, right? At the start of the year, this is where everybody sets those goals and resolutions. And my hope is for me, maybe for you, that we can sustain it, that our greatness lies in being able to be consistent with the work. I drove by yesterday at 6 or 7 p.m., pulling out of my subdivision onto a major road, or fairly major road. And I stopped, put my turn signal on, stop sign, letting a number of cars pass. And it's a T intersection. And as across the street is a sidewalk. And as I'm getting ready to take a left onto this road, I see somebody running. Dark. There's not great street lights here. It's cold. It's windy. It's snowing a little bit. It's windy, all that. And I see somebody just grinding it in the dark as my headlights of my car shined on the other side of the road. And I see this person just grinding it. And I kind of nudged my son next to me and I was like, hey, I think that's Rob. And my son was like, what is he doing out here right now at this time of the night in this weather running? And I said, he's doing a workout. It's called the Hard 75. He's 7 or 8, 9 days into it, and he's out getting his work done. And so we rolled the windows down and we made that left, and we all screamed out the window to him. And then at a stoplight or stop sign, I sent him a text that I was rooting for him, and I saw him out there grinding and was proud of him and wanted to know how his workouts were going and all that. And he actually said that it's going well, but he actually followed up by saying, hey, I'm listening to your podcast and catching up. So anyway, I just bring that up. Like, people are out doing things. And what people really need, what my buddy's doing, Rob, on his Hard 75, he's got a list of like 7 or 8 people on a text thread. And he's probably got to check in every day that are all doing the same workout he's doing, 7 or 8 of them. You can't be the one to quit. You can't be the one to say, it's the Seinfeld episode where Kramer busts through the door and throws his money on the table and says, I'm out. When they had the challenge to see who could, who was master of their domain, as they say, right? I'm out. You can't be the first person out. Like in that episode, Kramer lasted all of 20 minutes in the show, right? So, my buddy doesn't want to be the first one out. So he's out grinding. You don't care what time a day it is. You don't care what the conditions are. And that's part of the idea of this challenge. But anyway, I hope your year is going well. We're going to jump into it, right? I want to start with this. This is something that has really impacted me through 7 days of 2024. And I'm not going to be able to speak to it well. If you're watching this on YouTube, not many do, but we do have a YouTube channel. I'm holding a book up called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And I came across this author of Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And I came across him by listening to the Ed Milet show when I'm out doing my walk and run in the morning. And they interviewed him. And I was really fascinated by this. So the goals that you're setting right now, the goals that I'm setting, like I frame this as we're all in the 80. You know, if you're in the top 10% and you're an elite level guy and you're David Goggins and you're crushing it and you're making $1 million, 2 million, 100 million, whatever it is, and that's you, like you're probably not listening to this podcast. But if you're in the 80, trying to get out of the 80 and trying to get into that 10%, maybe you're listening. Maybe that's you. I don't believe there's going to be too many people listening to this that are in the bottom 10. We're in the 80. And when we set our goals for 2024, here's what my mind, like these are all just numbers and things that are thrown out. But for me to reach my goals of maybe this Dead 3 coaching and leadership development, you know, content I'm creating or a business I'm trying to create or, a community, really, I'm trying to build a community for 2024. Maybe it's the podcast. Maybe it's getting the guests. I have not reached out to anybody yet, but it's because I'm enjoying this and want to do that, right? The caliber of guests, right? The caliber of story. Like I can do that, like even professionally, what I want to do at my current job, what positions I want to have, what I may want to make, what the impact I may want to have, how I can impact and change the product and or the teams and the people to enjoy their jobs. You know, I could lay all that out. I could lay those goals out. And in December of 2024, I could sit there and say, shit, I did all this. Like we did this. I did this. I accomplished these things. What a great year. Now, in order for me to do that, I honestly believe in order for me to make a jump with those things, I do have to change some habits, routines, and mindsets in order to reach those things. You have to. In order for my buddy, Rob, who's out grinding on the hard 75 to improve and reach a goal of making it to March 17th with 2 workouts a day, with a gallon of water, to taking a profile pic of reading a book, he's got to change some things. You can't keep doing what you're doing and get that done. So he's got a big goal. So you better make some changes. Now, what level, what kind, and how much of a change do you need to make to reach your goals that you may have set for 2024? According to this 10X is Easier Than 2X book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, all you got to do is change 20%. You got to figure, you can keep doing the 80% that you're doing, but you've got to adjust and dial in and get focused on and make adjustments to the 20% to reach those goals. Now, percentages are, it's an 80-20, blah, 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 all that. I get it. But there's truth in that. My buddy grinding the hard 75 he made some changes. For me to reach my goals that I might have, and I look at my screen and I've got all this garbage up here of motivational things, of plans, of my planner that's sitting next to me that I made this year for the quarter, all that sort of stuff. I can't wake up and just bounce on Instagram for an hour and a half. I can't sit and just watch the news for an hour and a half. I've got to wake up. I've got to be intentional. I've got to, according to Jesse Itzler, I can't wing it. I've got to have a plan. I've got to execute my plan. And I've got to follow the script of my day in order to reach my goals for 2024. And you do as well. So that's your 2X. That's your 2X. And the reality is many of us can do all that. That is not that outrageous. My main plan for this quarter is to adjust my mornings. Then I'll have another plan for Q2, Q3, Q4. But I know without question, I've got to adjust my mornings. And that may just be enough to reach those goals. But what's the 10x? The book says 10x is easier than 2x. So here's the idea. And again, I just got this book, holding it up again. I just got this book after listening to the podcast from Ed Milet and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. So I don't know all of this. I don't have, and I'm going off of remembering ideas from the podcast. But here is what it is. Why is 10x easier? Well, let's just start with this. The first thing is, the first thing is this. You have to set what they label, and I don't love this label. I don't love this term. I don't love it. And it's, you have to set the impossible goal. Now you could say nothing's impossible and you can achieve it and all that. So I'm just using their phrase. Stretch goals, all this garbage, right? You've got to set the impossible goal. Drink a coffee here. So what is the impossible goal? So I'm out on a walk and I'm listening to this. And I'm walking to a pub. This is what I'm doing. This is my morning routine. Get up, don't care the weather. Did it this morning. I go for a walk. I put my headphones on. I listen to a podcast. I find something. I was listening to a podcast this morning from Mike Tomlin that a friend of mine recommended. He's the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm just consuming content, which is great for me. It frames my mind. It gets everything going for me. And I listened to this podcast about 2x, 10x is easier than 2x. And I'm listening to these gentlemen go back and forth. And I walk to the park, I run around the park, and then I walk home. So I get to the park, I'm listening to this, I run around the park, and then I get back to this spot, and then I start walking home. And as I'm walking home, I press pause on the podcast, and I text a dad, and I text his kid. And I just simply asked, and this is all paraphrasing essentially, but I asked them, this athlete, my buddy's son is a really good golfer, travels around, plays against Tiger Woods' kid, has a chance to do some amazing things in golf. He's also a heck of a basketball player, great family, just got it all, right? So I send his dad and the son a text. I said, hey, is a reasonable goal for you to win state in the next 4 years? Or let's say it this year. I don't remember exactly. So it's kind of a summary here. Is it easier for you to win one state championship in golf in high school? Or is the impossible dream, or is it harder to win a major? Right. So I send that, and his dad and I have a back and forth on this. And then they both agree, like, yeah, without question, it is harder to win a major, let alone make a major, let alone make the tour. It's easier to win a state championship. But the impossible goal, the goal that is out there. Now, you would ideally want to set this. Maybe not ideally. I was going to say you could ideally want to set this for a year. I don't know if that's true. Set your far-reaching goals. I'm 50, almost 51. 51 this year. What's 55 look like? What's impossible look like? What's impossible look like for me at 55? So anyway, we go back and forth, and I'll come back to that 55, that idea of 55. And when I reached out to them, they said, oh, without question, the major is the harder thing. So here's what I said. I said, isn't it the son's name is Hudson. So I say, Hudson, listen, I believe you can win a state championship. I also believe you have it in you, and you have the greatness in you to win a major. But in order for you to win the state championship in golf, whether that be this year, next year, within the next 4 years, I think all you need to do is adjust 20%. I don't think it's just going to happen doing what you're doing now. Maybe it will. Maybe he's that good. Maybe he's the type of player that can just show up and crush it. Maybe. But somebody else is out there grinding that may deserve it more, may earn it, may be working when he's not working, etc. So I know that in order for him to do that, all he's got to do is change to 20% and keep the 80. Then I asked him, I was like, hey, I also think you are capable of this outrageous, impossible, crazy goal. And the idea from Dr. Benjamin Hardy is in order to do that, you've got to keep 20 and change 80. You've got to keep 20 and you've got to change 80. So then, and like, that makes sense. But then this is where I'm at. This is where I'm at. And I've got my planner here and I'm trying to write this stuff down and I'm trying to think more about my days, my years, my plan, my schedule, my goals, the year. And my mind keeps coming back to what's the 20 I keep and what's the 80 I change. The first thing we got to do is you got to set that impossible goal, to keep using their phrase. You got to figure out what that is. You've got to figure out what that is. And then be unapologetic about it. I'm not saying you got to just go make, signs and billboards and you got to just voice to everybody and everything on what you're doing, but you just got to be able to think it through. I sat down with my children, all three of them, after this podcast, after I had texted my buddy and his son. We sat around the kitchen table. Reluctantly, the children sat down around the kitchen table, still in my running gear, even though 90% of it's walking. And I said, what's your goal for the year? Older son says, I want to do this. His was basketball related. My middle son, something with basketball. My daughter, something with school. I said, those are great goals. And without question, you can do it. 100%. Doing what you're doing now won't get it done. But if you change 20%, if you change 20 and keep 80 and make subtle adjustments, you will do it. Then I asked them all, what's the impossible goal? Older son says something else about basketball. Younger son, middle son says something about basketball. Youngest child, daughter, says something about school. So right there, you could say that's an indictment on me and the focus that my children have. All of those are they're hard goals. They are hard goals. And I like it that it was framed in a year, not when I'm 18. I think they should do that. I don't think they're there yet. We're dealing with 13, 14, 15-year-olds. But then I mentioned to him, you got to change the 80. Like you've significantly got to change the 80. I looked at my middle son and said, both of these goals are achievable. They are achievable. And they are great dreams. You should be unapologetic. You should say it with conviction and certainty. You got to change your standards. Mike Tomlin this morning in the podcast that I was listening to, recommended by my friend. The standard is the standard. The greatness you have in you and me, it takes what it takes. The standard is the standard. Sorry. Sorry on me. We're all in the 80. And we would all, listening to this, that are in the 80, we would do anything. I would think. If you're listening to this podcast, you are the type of person that wants to get out of the 80. If you're listening to this, you are the person that wants to get out of there. Like, you're not listening to this saying, this is awesome. I don't like, this is all garbage. I appreciate it. I listen to this because you're my buddy, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay. We would all love to be in that 10%. that top 10. But we're stuck in the 80. So you got to have these goals and you've got to be able to make those adjustments. So then it boils down to having those dreams and being able to figure out what you need to change. So let me circle back to the 55 years old thing. There was a gentleman in this story. So now I'm kind of summarizing and paraphrasing what Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, said in this podcast with Ed Milet. It was a long story. I'll make it brief. But he essentially said, hey, there was this guy and he wanted to be doing something he was buying properties and he wanted to buy 3 more properties in 10 years. So when he's 65 years old, he would have 3 properties. And then the idea was, hey, you've got to 10x that. You've got to 10x your goals, dreams, ambitions, desires, and wants and opportunities. And you can do it. But you've got to change 80. So he was being coached or counseled, or this guy read it, whatever it is. And he said, hey, I'm going to flip this on a script. And I want to have 10 properties in 3 years. I want 3 properties in 10 years. Then things will be good. And then I would have accomplished something. You're going to do that. Change 20%. Go do it. You can do it. No, I want to 10x this shit. So I'm going to go and I'm going to get 10 properties in 3 years. Watch. All of a sudden, because, there's people that talk about, intentions and the power of, the power of intention and The Secret, that book that came out 10, 20 years ago about, just manifesting it and thinking it through. I do buy that. I actually do believe in that stuff. I believe you've got to be intentional about it. And I'm going to lose my train of thought here. So I'm going to try to remember to come back to this gentleman. But it was this video I saw yesterday, and I've heard this story many times. It's just front and center for me now. But this lady's interviewing this guy. It's not original with her. She heard it from somebody, and she said, how many red cars did you see on the way to this interview or to work or your meeting? How many red cars did you see on the road? And he was like, don't know. I'm sure I saw some, but I can't remember seeing any. Okay. When you drive home today, look for the red car. And then he was like, I see them everywhere. Saw red cars everywhere. Before I even pulled out of the parking lot, I saw 3 or 4. So the idea is you got to focus on things. You got to focus on opportunity. You got to focus on what's coming your way. You got to focus on the positive. You got to focus on the great blessings and being grateful for you got to be open to everything. So when you sit there and say, I'm going to have 10 properties in 3 years, he is now seeing the red cars everywhere. Whereas I'm going to have 3 properties in 10 years, I might see a red car every once in a while. And I'm hunting for them. But I'm not open to receiving it, or however you want to phrase it. So you got to see the red cars. And you got to be open to those things. And so the idea of 10X is you're going to open the doors. You're going to start seeing red cars and you're going to put it out there. And now, so this gentleman, instead of 3 and 10, and now shifting it to 10 and 3, he was like, you know what? I'm not even going to be building these properties. I'm going to start acquiring them. And within a year, he already was at 7 properties after 1 year. And then he ended up with like 30 and 3. Like, it was crazy what the guy did. So did he 10X it? He changed his perspective on 80. And he kept 20. I would love to be able to do that in 2024. So what do you have to do? There's probably 10 things I could rattle off right now on how I can make the podcast better. Get a curriculum, get bullet points, put another series together, start having more guests, tap into their networks, put more on social media. Don't be embarrassed of myself that I put things on social media, not thinking people are laughing, like all that sort of stuff. Like, I could rattle off 10 ways. I could go into ChatGPT and then come up with another 25 that are relevant for me on how to make this better. And then to position Dead 3 coaching leadership development in a better light. And then sit there and say, you know what? My goal in January was to do this. But I decided to make these impossible goals. And I decided to change 80. And man, it looks different. Speaking, business, current job, consulting, impact, conversation, all that. Like, that's the stuff I'm driven by. I was talking about, listening to these podcasts, talking about, there was a lady that Ed Milet was talking in this interview with the 10X guy here. And he was saying you have to have your purpose. We've all heard this stuff. Purpose and why. You've all heard it. We've all heard it. It's all true, but we've all heard it. And Ed Milet was saying, hey, this lady was very upfront about her purpose. I want to be famous. I want people to know me. I want people to like me. And I want to be the most famous person around. And Ed Milet was like, at least she's honest about it. And he didn't begrudge her about it. He was like, okay. The other person was like, hey, I want to serve. But Ed Milet knew this lady and was like, you don't really want to serve. Like, that's a part of it, but you want to be famous. And you're saying you want to serve to make yourself feel better. And I bring that up simply because as they were talking about it, I was thinking about my year and I was thinking about the content we're creating. And I was like, I want to build a community. I want to have conversation. I want to have an impact. That's it. So as you look at your year, your goals for the year, what's your purpose? What's your why? We all know that stuff. You're listening to this. My buddy that's running at 7 p.m. at night in the snow and 20 degrees and the wind and the slush, he knows his purpose. But then we've got, like, I would encourage us right now to figure out and hold myself accountable to this is, man, we really, really have to figure out how to 10X this sucker. And then here's the other thing. And I believe Milet talked about this, but it's here in front of me and we don't have time. I'm going to wrap this up in about 2 minutes to keep these at 30 minutes. They have been too long recently. I apologize. But I've got this whole 5 bullet point system here on belief. And I'm driven right now by believing in people. That is my number one thing that is on my heart and mind right now, is how we can challenge, be demanding, and believe in people. I just am driven by that right now. It is consuming me as a leader. How those 3 things, how we can dream with, and I don't remember the exact 3 things I just said, but I know it's belief, and it's being demanding, and it's being encouraging, and it's dreaming with people. And so I bring that up, one, because that's probably where we're headed here in the next couple podcasts. Like, I'm really driven by it. Everybody's got a dream. The lady selling you shoes, the guy that's filling your coffee cup, the guy that's making your pizza, the guy that's washing your car, the CEO in the meeting, like everybody has a dream. Some people need to 10X their dreams, and we need to be encouraging. And everybody that's got that dream, you need to support and believe in them. Now, if there are people close to you and they've got a dream, but they have zero action. If I continue to put this podcast out and I continue to talk about my 10X dreams and vision and all that, and I've got buddies that listen to this podcast and they don't see me doing anything, I should get my tail kicked. They love me. They care about me. They like me. They're encouraging and all that. But at the end of the day, quit talking about being in the NBA when you don't even want to get in the gym. You can't be in the NBA unless you're in the gym. So quit being delusional. Now, set the goals. And then the last thing, I mean, just to hammer on this point again, get outrageous with 2024 or the next 5 years. 10x it. Change, figure out what to keep, figure out the 80 to change. And then, man, find people that believe in you. Find people that are encouraging. Find people that are supporting. Find people that you're accountable to. Find people that are demanding. As I do this walking, and I am not saying I'm doing this at all, but I've been thinking about writing this book and what 2024 might look like. And if I just write a little bit every day, I could have maybe a good book. And then, but I don't know if I don't even know how to begin to write a book. Do you start with the title? Do you start with the chapters? Do you just start right? I have no idea. And I'm not saying I'm going to write a book. If I were to write a book, I think it would be called and titled, my first book would be titled, The Battle for Your Greatness. And we all have it. Set those goals. Find people to believe in you. Find people that are demanding. Find people that love you. Find people that you are accountable to. 10x your dreams. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this as I get into this book. My goal is to read one book that I'm into. The 4-day work week, the 5 a.m. club, the 10x is easier than 2x, the advantage by Len Coney, and all these books behind me. My plan is to read one book every 10 days, right? The reason I picked 10 days, one, most months have 30, and it's easy for me to sit there and say a 190-page book I should be reading 19 pages a day. So it's got to be simple for me. Listen, I hope that your 2024 is off to a great start. I hope that after 9 pages in chapter 1, that it is the story you want to be telling. It is a story you're going to be proud of. I've got my planner here in front of me, and on page 2 or 3, plan a year that you will be proud of. Plan a year that you will be proud of. I hope you've planned your year. I hope you've thought about your year. I hope you've thought about great goals. I hope that your goals are then being funneled down into 12 chapters. I hope that every single page of chapter 1 is filled towards you having a great year and having a great book of 2024. Hey, please reach out to me. I had different plans for this episode. We were going to go through believing in team members and challenging team members and being demanding while maintaining support, and my bullet point list here of believing in people. But something else was on my heart, I guess, this morning. So listen, have a great rest of your week. Please reach out to me. And I really appreciate all the support that people have given me with this podcast. It is growing. It is just me at this point. I will be adding guests. I'm just enjoying this format right now. It's easy for me to press record. I don't have to deal with schedules, etc. And there's not a huge amount of prep, and I'm enjoying it. And the feedback I'm receiving is great. So I'm enjoying it. It's going to be a great 2024. I'm 9 pages into chapter 1, and so far the story's good. Take care.